Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought we'd pop by and create a couple more, or a Thrinchie. Can't make my mind up, but I thought we'd create some more Thrinchies because I just love having this book to look through for inspiration, and it does actually inspire me to sort of create. I look through them, and if I'm ever stuck for idea, I still love that one. I absolutely adore that. I think I'm going to have a stencil with that pot on because I just adore that. But I just love looking through these. Even when they're just little ideas. This is so textural. Oh, I love it. Love these. So we've done 42, we've done 43, 44, 45, 46. So we're now on Thrinchie 47. So what I thought I would do is, I'm going to use, this is a template, I've had it years. I think, even though I'm reluctant, I think I'm going to have like an A6 stencil with different size circles on, because I use it a lot. It's just that I know everybody's bought out circles, and it's just repeating what everybody's done. But I think I'm going to have to, because I use them all the time. This has been used for years, even before COVID. I've had the same piece of card, and I look at it, but I still come back to it. So I'm going to, which side am I going to have this on? Think about this, Tracy. This side. So I've got my Thrinchie, which are 3 inches square. I've got these on the website. Now, have I got these? I don't know whether this, I've got these suckers. No, you probably think I'm absolutely raving mad. Hang on, this stuck, is this one, have I stuck this to the, oh, you just can't make it up, Tracy. Bear with me. I don't know what I've stuck this one to. Oh, let me get another. I'll sort that out later. I was going to use these suction things, but never mind. Let's grab my non-stick. Non-stick. No, it's not non-stick. It's low-tack tape. So just grab the low-tack tape. There we go. And I'm going to just turn this into a circle, and then I can just hold that in place however I want to hold that in place, just so that that doesn't keep moving. Just makes it a little bit easier for me. And I think I'm going to have, I just want sort of part of the circle. What do I want on this? Do you like how I cannot make my mind up? I'm going to use the Abutalon. Let me grab my stamp. So I'm going to use TE7. I'm going to use this a little Abutalon. Can you see this little Abutalon here? I'm going to use that. Like so. Let me just have a think about where I want it. So I could have it either side, couldn't I? Spot the person that can't make a mind up. I'm going to have it on this side. Doesn't matter what size circle, as long as it, you know, the circle, and I'm not having a full circle, it's just like a semicircle. And I'm going to use Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, and I'm using my blending brushes. And I'm going to grab the ink. Now, if I hold the blending brush up here, it'll get me an application of ink, but I will get more ink if I just bring my hands a little bit further down. Can really get into that ink pad and layer this with ink. Just makes it a lot easier to blend. And then I'm just going to go round. So I'm using Hickory Smoke, a grey ink. And you can see what's hilarious is I've now got little bits of brown coming off. This is why I want to do a stencil, because look, it's not showing as grey. It's showing as brown because I've got this on here. Let me just turn it round. Not that it matters much, really. It'll be browny grey. But I haven't got any brown on here. It's grey. That's actually off the circle. So just coming in with a little bit of that grey. That's better. There we go. So I've got that circle on there. If you want to add a little bit of brown to yours, you can. But then I've got part of that circle on my Thrinchie. And I love doing the Thrinchies just because it's a little small piece of art and we can still have as much fun. So I'm going to grab a grey ink pad. Now, you know by now my grey ink pad of choice is VersaFine Clair Morning Mist. So let's bring in, and you know, I didn't even realise it was Bank Holiday Monday this weekend. I thought it was next weekend because I always thought it was the last Monday. But obviously August ends on the Sunday, doesn't it? So no, Drip here didn't realise it was Bank Holiday. How good am I? So I'm going to take the Abutalon, and I'm taking the smaller Abutalon here. So just going to take that. I know, I'm hopeless, absolutely hopeless. So I'm going to take, let's just add that here, like so. I'm just going to add the Abutalon there, and it's lovely stamped in the grey. So let's just ink that again. I do like it stamped in the grey, and the other week I liked it stamped in the green. I'm just trying to decide, shall I have it there? A little bit lower down. There we go. So I'll have this one here. But yes, I did love it stamped in the green the other week as well. That looked gorgeous. Really lovely. What are you doing with this, Tracy? Right, there we go. Let's just grab a wipe just in case we get in a little bit of a mess, and then we can just wipe that. I love looking through these books, you know, even the sort of the ticketed snippets, looking through this with the texture paste. Oh, just love it. Love that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take, which I didn't grab out, the Fern stamp. So let's grab TE3. So TE3, the Fern stamp. Love this stamp, well used little stamp. Now, two of the ferns come together. I've cut mine up. It's up to you whether you cut them up. It just meant I could get more on the stamp. That's me all over. So I'm going to take the fern stamp, like so. Let's just ink. So again, I'm using the Morning Mist. Let's bring this down here a bit. And then, can't make my mind up, but we're going to have a little bit of the fern here. First generation, and maybe a little bit of second generation. So I'm going to ink that again. So take the first generation. Let me just... Do you like how I keep messing so I can't decide? So take the first generation. So this is with your Morning Mist. Sometimes when I say Morning Mist, I always think I've got the... It's Morning Mist, isn't it? I always think I've got the wrong name. Yeah, Morning Mist. I always think I've got the wrong name. I don't know why. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of the fern, and just at the end, I'm just using the end little bits of the fern. I'm going to bring in a little, you'll see what I mean in a minute. So I'm just bringing a little bit of the fern in there. There we go. Let's just grab our... I'll just lift this up so you can see that. I've just got a little bit of the fern here. First and second generation as well. And the Abutalon just dangling from there. Now I just want to see, I was thinking of having something dangling. Bear with me. It's 24 I want, 24, that's it. and I want to use TE24. And I'm going to use the little teeny weeny light bulb here. That plastic was then truly stuck on. So I'm going to take the little light bulb, and I can always use my acetate just to see how I want to use that. I'm going to take my little light bulb, and then I'm just going to, actually I don't want to ink that in grey. I want to grab my sand dune because I'm going to add a little bit of colour. So I want to use my sand dune ink and just ink my little light bulb. There we go. And hopefully it'll show up enough on our background. Doesn't matter if it doesn't, we can sort it out. I just need it to show up for the shape. Oh, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. So we've now got our shape, we've got our composition. So now I can add a little bit of colouring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you can use whatever colouring medium you wish. I'm going to use set 6 on mine. Set 6. I'm going to put all the colours everywhere. Has this one got one? Maybe, oh yes, I'm going to use set 6 and set 4. I'll tell you the colours I'm going to use. So, oh, I'll just left that. The orange, which one are you now? Lumberjack plaid, yes. I can't pick anything up. Just press it up like that, Tracy, and then it rises up. And festive berries, there we go. So I'm going to use my distress pencils that are woodless watercolour. And I'm going to colour with those. So let's grab a nice fine brush. Do you know, I've got that many brushes now, I can't make my mind up what to use. I've got super thin ones. Look at the length of this one. I've had them for ages. And now you're going to see me faff. That'll do, faff for ages. I'm just going to use a very fine brush. Let's bring this one in just in case I need it. And we need some water. And let's just do some colouring. Let's turn this around so you can see that. I'm going to use a dark, a medium and a light. No different than if I was using my Prismacolors, whether you're using your polychromos, whether you're using your oxides. So first of all, I'm going to use Lumberjack plaid. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Lumberjack plaid. And I'm just going to colour a little bit of the Lumberjack plaid. So just add in a little bit of the Lumberjack plaid. And you can see this one is right on that oxide colour. So this is Lumberjack plaid. And then I'm going to add, I need it to go this way, I'm going to add some of the Lumberjack plaid straight over my oily ink. So this is my dark colour. So let's come in and just blend a little bit of that dark colour. And then I'm going to come to, so that's Lumberjack plaid. We're then going to go to Festive Berries, and these are in set 4 and set 6, which is what I have on my website. I am going to get the other sets in. They are normally a stock item, I just haven't had them in for a bit. So let's just add the festive berries. So I'm just laying the pigment down onto the surface, nothing complicated at the moment, starting with the dark, the medium, and then we're going to go to carved pumpkin. So let's add the carved pumpkin. Let's just add a little bit of the carved pumpkin. Oh, I took Poppy for a walk yesterday, and while I was walking around, one of the gardens had a beautiful abutilon in there. Oh, it was gorgeous. So let's bring this here. So you can see that I'm adding a little touch of colour there. So I'm going to use my water. Make sure my brush is loaded with water. But what I always like to do is whenever I'm doing anything with water, I always like to just have my kitchen roll just on standby in case I've got too much water. Just on standby, because you can always take a little bit off. And then I'm going to blend the colours just with my water. Take a little bit off. So I'm just blending the colours. Now you might not see that very much in camera, but those are blending. But I'm going to add more pigment just shortly. So going into, don't forget I'm only using a little bit of water. I'm not using too much water. So what I'm going to do then is I'm then going to pick the pigments up from the pencils. So it's brilliant because I can go directly on the pencil and I don't have to worry that I'm going to affect that pencil in any shape or form because it's woodless. And I can also flick colour onto my project as well if I wanted to. So now I can come in just with a little bit more of that pigment. Look how rich the pigment is now. And I wanted to lay it down first just so I can show you just how beautiful that pigment is. So let's pick this colour up here. Just wonderful. Pick this direct up from the pencil. Just blend that out. And then we'll just rinse our brush just to go to the medium colour. But look how much pigment is in there. I'm then going to go to the festive berries, isn't it? Festive berries. And I'm going to pick up the festive berries, knowing that I can't spoil my pencils, which is just an added benefit. Let's have a little bit more water. Do you like how I just keep using the kitchen towel just to help with the flow of the water, just so that it's not getting too watery on me. So just using that festive berries. There we go. Let's rinse that again. But I love how much pigment is still in there. And then I can go to my lovely orangey colour, which is carved pumpkin. And then I can pick the carved pumpkin pigment up. And then we can come in. And if you think it's got a little bit much water, just dab with your kitchen roll just a little bit of that pigment. And you can still come in and add more of the pigment if you wish. You can dry it and then still add another layer of the pigment. So we could dry this colour and just add another layer of the pigment to our florals. But I've got a lovely sort of depth of colour on there as well. And obviously I'm going to bring in some white. We haven't finished yet. But if I just grab the pencils, let's bring it, let me just practice on another Thrinchie. If you, come on Tracy, if you wish, if you can pick up your Thrinchie, trapped, there we go. You can also, let's grab the brushes, let's grab a little bit of water on here. You can also take it and you can just flick. Look at this. So I've added water. You're not going to get a simpler background than this. Add water to your Thrinchie. Take water, look at the pigment in that, and just flick. Look at that. Okay, so we can just take off the excess on there. Just dab up the excess. I can then go in, doesn't matter, that's tinted orange. And I can just now flick the candied apple. Now you're not going to get an easier background than this. How wonderful. Now I know if you haven't got distress pencils, I know not everybody can afford everything, then why don't you use some brushos if you've got those? But look at all this pigment I've got here. Can you see it? All that pigment there. Just loads of it. So then I can pick up the lumberjack plaid that I can't speak. And I can just... Now, if your inks stop moving, you just add a bit more water and it just moves. I can just... So I can add that. So take off that pigment, take off the excess, and I can come back and add more of the orange if I wish. Pick up, look at that pigment in there, just wonderful. So I've got another background. So easy. Look at all that pigment on there. We can't waste that, can we? So let's just dab off the excess on my pencils, just so I don't put that in my tin. I can just let them dry naturally. That's absolutely fine. But I'm a bit of a stickler for making sure everything's clean. I don't want all that pigment everywhere. But what I don't want to do, let's move this here. Just move those pencils out of the way. And clean up is so easy, but just move that out of the way. Can you see all this pigment here? So I now need to grab another Thrinchie. So let's grab another Thrinchie. I'll grab another 2 Thrinchies because now my luck, one isn't enough. So I've got that one I've just done from flicking from the pen. And then you've got all this pigment on here. So I can just look at the, add a little bit of water to this. Look how highly pigmented this is. Just wonderful. And it seems a shame that we don't use those. So let's just dry that. I just enjoy being creative. It just, you know, it relaxes me. It's just a lovely way to spend a few hours. So you can add a little bit of water like you always do with your distress products. So you can then dry that. So this is the one where I flicked it direct from the pencil. This is the first pickup from what was left on here. This is the second pickup from what was left on here. So just give those a dry. And the reason I'm drying it is when I dry it, it's then just like I do with my pencils, I can layer that colour and get more depth of colour over and over again. So this one is lighter, so I can come in and just dab the colour from the pencils. Got a little bit of card here. What amazes me is how much pigment just from the mop up. I like that background just as it is. I really could get another print out of there, but I'll be here forever. But you could get about another 3 Thrinchies out of that quite easily. No problem at all. There we go. So you've got all these backgrounds now just from colouring these. So you've got all those backgrounds from there. Let's just... There we go. So we've got 3 lovely backgrounds, and I can just add a little bit more water. And you can just leave those on one side while we carry on with the other one. So I'll grab another piece of kitchen roll just to place those on. Just so that we've got those onto a piece of kitchen roll. And then I can place them just on one side just to do their thing, just rest or whatever. And then I can just... Let's just clean this up. So not much mess at all. So just give this a clean, a dry. Don't know what I'm talking about. And if you want to, then you can come in just with a little tiny bit of water. So a finer brush. Let me just pick that up. So I'm loading my brush with pigment, and I can just come in even darker. So just pick up that pigment, and it's very controlled because I'm using a fine brush just to bring in a little bit more of that dark colour. Just bring in a little bit more. I'm just bringing in a little bit more depth. So it's no different than when I use my Prismacolors. You see when I use my Prismacolors how many times I come in. So this is just a very fine brush. I can't recommend a fine brush enough. Now sometimes on the Abutilon I colour the top in green, but I'm leaving that white. So I'm just coming in with this darker pigment, and I'm just no different than I colour with anything. For me personally, it's all about layers. I am not, and I say it every time, a professional colourist. The professional colourists out there, they're just amazing. Now they add really fine layers of pigment in whatever form they want to colour in. And so many layers. But I do find it, what I do get from colouring is, find it quite satisfying and relaxing. Especially when you've done your project and you think, oh yes, that looks really good. So just bringing in a few more. Let's grab a little bit more water. Just bringing in a little bit more depth. Just with that darker colour. So I've got it a little bit darker there. Do you know, I'm afraid I'm the kind of person, I love faffing. I just enjoy. Look at the pigment in that. So let's grab a little bit more water. And with a basic core of products, you can do so many things. You really can. So I'm coming in now with the festive berries that Tracy has to look at because she can't remember the colours from one minute to the next. So just coming in with the festive berries. And again, it's about layering those colours. If you like a lovely pastel finish, then you can finish at layer 1. That's absolutely fine. I love playing with colour. And I love to just see what difference you get by adding layers of colour. I just love that. So then we're going to come to our orangey colour, which is carved pumpkin. Again, both sets 4 and 6. So let's pick up that orange. Now, if you want some basic colouring, you can't get much simpler than this. Let's just, and I've got lovely depth in there. Makes me very happy having that depth of colour in there. I can come in and add another layer of that orange, just to make it a little bit brighter. See, I'm enjoying myself far too much, but then that's what being creative is all about. Just clean that up with a little bit of water. And then I'm just going to give that a little dry, just because we've used those oxides, and I would like to come in with my Posca pen. So I'm just going to give that a dry. There we go. So I'm just going to come in with a dry, just so you can see before we add the white. So then I'm going to come in, I'm going to add a little bit of white. I always think the white sort of really finishes everything off. I just pick up a few of the squiggly lines on the Abutilon as well. A few little dots here. Let's add a little bit of white here as well. I'm terrible. I just faff so much. I just love it. I forgot the little bud here. So I can just add a few little touches to the fern. I just love having a little play. Do I want to do this with the white now or the black? Yeah, I think black, because that won't show up enough. So I'm going to use a black fine point pen. I'm just going to just dangle my light bulb so that it's hanging from something. And I just like to sort of add layers of that white. And you can easily, if you don't want it to react too much with the distress, because that reacts with moisture, you can just give that a little bit of a dry. Then I want to add some shading, but you can see how much care I take even over a Thrinchie. So I'm going to add a little bit of shading just here. So now we have to make sure we've got none of this pigment. Look at this. The pigment, just wonderful. That's it. So I'm then going to just blend this out now. So we've got a little bit of shading. There we go. So just using a fine brush. So let's just add a little bit of shading just around the base there. And just add a little bit of shading around our floral. Now, more often than not, I always take my time when I'm creating. Doesn't matter what I'm creating. So let's just add a little bit of shading through there. And I want to add a little bit of shading around the bottom of the circular area. Just blend that out. There we go. And if I want to, then I can come back. Where are you? With the actual piece that I used to blend the colours. Forgot I've got that sticky thing on the back, haven't I, just to keep it in place. There we go. So then I can use my blending brush again. And then I can just come in and add a little bit of a darker layer . Just make it a little bit darker. Oh, yes. I'm then going to take TE11. I love a little bit of text on there. I'm going to take my TE11, which is background elements, TE11. And I'm going to use my Morning Mist ink. You can just ink. And I'm going to pick the stamp up, not on an acrylic block. And I'm just going to curve the stamp a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of stamping here and there. You can be very mindful. You can just add tiny little touches if you wish, or you can add a little bit more of the text should you wish. Now, my Morning Mist is very well used, and I often keep a well-used ink pad just for this kind of thing when I don't want it to be too overpowering. Let me show you. Just so you can see there's a little bit of text on there. And I really think that we should add a little bit of colour to the buds. Just give them a little bit of colour. You don't even have to blend them if you don't wish. Just so that you've got that little bit of colour on the buds. It doesn't take much colour. There we go. You can come back in, add a little bit of orange again. And if you want to blend those with a bit of water, you can blend that with a little bit of water. Just so that you've got that lovely colour on there. Come back with my white and just add. You can see how many times I've gone in with the white. Again, just adding the layers, just to give a few layers. Then I'm going to add a few splatters. Not yet, you're not Tracy, because I want my little bird. So I want my little bird from TE44. So let's add that, TE44, and my little bird. I like how I just keep getting another acrylic block, because I keep putting them down and then I can't find the acrylic blocks. Oh, there it is. It's because everything's see-through. Can't find it. So now I need black ink for that. So I'm going to use my Nocturne ink. Let's take our Nocturne ink. No, you could have him. No, I want him down here. Do you like how I'm fussy? I want him standing down here. So I've got that oxide ink on there, so I'm just going to give that a little bit longer just to make sure it makes a good impression on that card. Let's place this back or else I'll be looking for it. And of course I want a little bit of shading just underneath. Preferably not with that, as you can see. Look at the pigment in that. So what's the rule? Always clean your brushes. Let's use this one. So with that fine brush, I can just add a little bit of moisture and not affect the oxide too much. But really, I think we should give this brush a little bit of a clean. Look at the pigment in that. You could mop that up and create another background quite easily. Wonderful. So now I want to add my splatters, which is right in front of me. And we'll just give that a few little splatters. I think that's plenty. So we'll just clean our area again. And you know what I haven't done, don't you? What I never do every single time. So we'll grab a piece of copier paper and then we'll add our black mat. Marguerite will be telling me off because Marguerite has them all prepared, all with the black edges all done, so that you just come to it and your black edges are all done. No, not Tracy. So let's add them. Then add the black edge. I think that faux black mat just finishes it off beautifully. And the only reason for me doing it on a piece of copier paper is so that cleanup is far easier. And I'll push it away from me so you can't see what I'm doing, because that helps as well. There we go. But it just makes everything pop. So let's move this out of the way. But that just makes everything pop. It really does. I just love that. Absolutely love it. So I can put that in my book shortly, but let's use this again. So we'll just place that on one side just while it dries a little bit. And then the others, which are now deep in whatever, come here. So you've now got these that you can create other Thrinchies from if you want. I'm going to use this one where we flicked it direct from the pencils, the watercolour pencils. So I'm going to use this one because it's nice, rich and dark. So I'm going to use that one. I don't think I need that actually. I'm going to give this a dry because as you can see, it's still very wet there. And I'll keep moving my heat tool like this that does absolutely nothing because it's a bad habit that Tracy's got into over 30 years. But I'll do it anyway. So then I'm going to take the Abutilon stamp again. And on the Abutilon stamp, you've got this beautiful floral here. So I'm going to use that floral. Can't tell by looking on the acetate which way I want it. Which way do you want it? Where's the... It doesn't really matter, but I keep changing my mind every time I do it. So I'm going to take the floral. I'll probably turn it around on my acrylic block anyway, like I normally do. Let's grab that copy of paper as well, just in case I don't use the whole floral, which again could be me all over. Yeah, I think I'll just use part of it. So I'm going to use black Nocturne on this one, just so it picks up that rich detail. And because I'm using the black and it's a permanent ink, that means I can use my watercolour pencils no problem at all. There we go. Now I'm going on to that pigment of distress, so I don't want it that way. I told you I'd swap it round, didn't I? So let's just add this here. Now obviously I've got all that pigment on there from the distress. I'm just going to give that a little bit longer, just so the ink just makes an impression on the surface. Not an impression, but you know, it makes a print on that surface. If I lift it too soon and go too quickly, there's no chance it's going to leave all this detail behind. Now I've used a piece of copy paper because it saves me cleaning up this oily ink on my non-stick craft sheet. So let's just give that a few moments. I don't need to press too hard, just give that a few moments, just a little bit of time. And I always think when you add them in the little book, that is really what sets those off, for me personally anyway. Now there's quite a bit of detail on the floral. Now this isn't an Abutilon, this is another flower on the Abutilon stamp set. There we go. Now the Abutilon is the nodding flowers here. So then let's look for our... I always like to try and get it in the right place. So, oh, there it is. There we go. That's it. Nothing like being a fuss pot. So now what I can do is I can add more colour to this, and I've got a beautiful background, but I can make it sort of dark and rich so that that stands out. So we're doing another Thrinchie then that coordinates with this Thrinchie, because it's got the same colours, even though look how different they look when they're all watered down. Just wonderful. So I'm going to come in with my darkest colour, and you know that I'm going to forget what the colour is. This is Lumberjack Plaid. So let's come in and add this dark lumberjack plaid first. And by now you'll know that there's no depth on there unless I add layers of that colour, and that is exactly what I will do. I will come in and I will add layers of the colour. So even though it's Thrinchies and it's only a 3-inch square, we still want a beautiful finish. So I've got my lumberjack plaid as my darkest colour. I'm then going to come in with my festive berries, and we'll just come in and add the festive berries just like I would with my Prismacolors, the dark colour, and then with the second colour that's the medium colour going into that dark colour. The reason I'm picking up the dark pen again is because I keep missing the ones here. It's got a beautiful array of petals and I keep missing certain petals because that's me all over. So when you sort of lay this colour down initially, you've got that sort of watercolour, watery effect. And there's still some I've missed here. But obviously we can go in after we've dried it and we can add another layer of that colour. But the minute you just add these colours, it does start to come to life. Let's come in with our carved pumpkin. And if you want to sharpen your pencils so that they come to a point, you can do that as well. But don't waste those shavings. Why not put them in a bag? And you've seen my previous video where I've added the shavings to the translucent texture paste. There we go. So just coming in and adding the orange. And as you start to colour that flower, it all comes to life. There we go. And obviously that's just with one layer of colour. And Tracy then looks for a paintbrush. Let's just add this. So now it doesn't matter that there's a bit of orange in there. It's still, even when I've rinsed it that many times, but it doesn't matter that there's orange in there. Because I'm just going to blend the colours. Just blend them. So you can see the first layer is sort of, it's laid down quite quickly. Okay, so let's give that a dry so that we can add another layer. There we go. And then let's grab a little bit of water. Take our brush. It's up to you if you use a finer brush at this stage like I did before. And then we can come in with another layer of that colour. Now have your kitchen roll on one side just in case it's a little bit too watery for you. And you want that pigment to be a little drier because you've added too much. But you can see, because I've dried that, I'm now getting another another layer of colour and a bit more depth. And when it comes to colouring, I really do think it's worth making the extra effort, personally. So I'll just look at that. Again, I could make more backgrounds. I'm then going to come to my festive berries. Let's take a little bit off. I've got the handles a little bit wet, so I'll just wipe that. And I'll come in with the festive berries. Coming into that previous colour. But don't let anybody rush you when you're colouring. It should be enjoyable, not rushed. The professional colourists take ages to get a beautiful finish. So we'll clean that again. And then we'll come back to our beautiful carved pumpkin. Let's pick that up. And we'll come in with the carved pumpkin. And the layer of the carved pumpkin, it's really quite bright now. It's lovely. But it is the layers that make that difference. Whatever colouring medium that you're using, I'm a great believer in that if you take the time just to layer your colour, the effect, it's definitely worth a little bit more time. So I've got a nice dark rich colour in there, so let's give that a dry. So I've got a beautiful rich colour in there, but I'm going to come in with a little bit more of the lumberjack plaid with my very fine brush. I'm going to pick up the lumberjack plaid just to make sure, and then I'm going to come in just that little bit darker. Just right in there, just so that's a little bit darker. So I'm just taking my time and adding a few sort of extra dark touches where I think that will benefit from a few more darker touch. Look at the pigment in there, and I've touched it with a fine brush. I'll give that another dry because I want to then come in with my Posca pen, and there's no point me coming in with my Posca pen when the card is soaking wet, because all you'll do is scratch that card and break down those fibres. There we go. So let's now add a few touches of the white. And I'm just going to hold that pen very lightly. Let's put a little bit of white here. So I'm going to add a few very sort of light, scratchy lines, just so it's got a little bit of light in there. A few touches of white because I just can't help myself, because that's me all over. And again, personally, I would go in and sort of add layers of that white. And what I mean by that is I would dry like so, and then I would go back in again and sort of bring in that white once again. Just to lift the whole area. So then I'm going to add, let me just show you, just so you can see that. And you could come in again with the water distress pencils, because it's not like these were making the surface shiny when you add too many layers. So I'm going to grab some embossing. And look at me, I've even bought a little dustpan and brush, if I can open it. Look, little dustpan and brush for sweeping up, because I'm very sad. It's supposed to, it clicks in place somehow, but I never get it. Let me just, supposed to, that's it, it clicks in place to keep the dirt in there until you empty it. My little dustpan and brush doesn't take much to amuse me, does it? So then I'm going to just use my anti-static bag, just so the embossing sticks where I want it to stick. I'll bring in our copy of paper, and we'll bring in number 11. We'll also bring in our Versamark. So let's bring in the Versamark ink. And I'm going to add some white embossing. Just use my one finger to add that. Let's bring in, that is not, is that white? It's got the tiniest amount of white in there. So let's bring in that Wow opaque white. That's lovely. Let's do it again. Do you like I'm not cleaning that powder up? I'll clean it all up in one. Let's add a little bit more text. Now I can see, where's the little soft brush? I can see that bit there that I don't want. Always have a soft brush when you are embossing. It's surprising how if you get a little bit of stray embossing powder, you can just get rid of that. And what we'll do is we'll emboss that and see what we have. But before you emboss it, just have a look, just make sure that you haven't got any embossing sort of maybe in this area if you don't want it. Mine looks okay-ish. Oh, let's grab that heat tool and we'll just add the embossing. Turn this round. There we go. So I've got a little touch of white embossing there, which is just beautiful. Now, if you want to sort of show that up a little bit more, you can then come back in. We can take our fine brush. Let's grab a little bit of water. And if I want it to show up a little bit more, I can grab the darkest colour, lumberjack plaid, and I can just come in. Let's take a little bit more. I can come in and I can just highlight a little bit of the embossing that has gone into the white card area. So you can, look, you can highlight that a little bit more. And the good thing is you can then just come to the orange, and whilst it's still wet, you can add in a little bit of the orange, and it's just, oh, it's wonderful. And I can blend that colour quite easily whilst it's wet. And then if you're worried, you know, say you get some harsh lines, just spritz with a bit of water. That will get rid of any sort of harsh lines if you feel you've got any. Just give that a little bit of a dry, because now the reason I'm sort of moving my heat tool now is because I don't want to affect that embossing in any shape or form. Let's just dab that, there we go. And then Tracy needs to add her black lines. Let's come in with my Posca paint pen, and we'll add our black edge. Not exactly a black edge there. Sometimes I have to go over twice because my Posca pen needs a bit of a shake. But when you've got sort of lovely bright colours, the Posca pen, the black faux matte, really does bring it to life. We used to do this with Krylon pens when I had the shop. We were obsessed with it at the time, doing it with Krylon pens. Let's bring that in. Just, oh, I love that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of shading just around the floral. And now you know I've used these with the pigments, so we know that that is going to be completely coloured with pigments. So let's just make sure it's somewhat clean. And then let me make sure you can see that. And then we'll just blend. The reason you have to use more water when you've got a fine brush, obviously it's that it doesn't hold as much. There we go. That's it. Then we'll add some white splatters. So let's add some white splatters to our project. Just lovely, absolutely lovely. So I'm just going to give that a dry again. And the only reason I'm giving it as a dry is so that the Posca pen again doesn't react too much. Wonderful. So I've got two Thrinchies that go together with each other. And then I'm going to see if my bird will work on here. Where are you? So my little bird from TE44, I want the bird that's facing the other way. And then Tracy will look for an acrylic block. And then I'm going to take my Nocturne ink. So let's take the Nocturne ink. Make sure that's not going to drop off. And I'm going to go straight over the embossing. So let's just allow that just to, and I'm hoping the black goes in between where it isn't embossed. And if it doesn't matter because I can cut one out. Oh yes, I'll show you what I mean. So you've stamped the bird afterwards, but it looks like you've stamped the bird beforehand, doesn't it? Yes, love it, absolutely love it. So let's add a little bit of the grey Inktense pencil. Let's grab a little bit more water. And just add a little bit more shading for our little bird. Wonderful. Absolutely love that. You don't always have to add wording if you don't wish, or you can leave the wording until you decide what you want, but you don't have to add the wording. So my book's getting a bit full now. Still got a few pages left, but it's getting a bit full. So then I'm going to adhere this. So let's add there we go. Just trying to get my pages. It makes taking a photograph really difficult, but hey ho. So I just think when it's in the book, it just looks really finished. It's just lovely. Then let's add this one. Just have to give that a little bit of time because obviously this one has had quite a bit of moisture on there, but you don't worry about it too much because once the book is closed, that just flattens everything out. So that was 47 and 48. Let me just make sure. 43, 44, 45, 46, 47 and 48. 47 and 48. And obviously it's entirely up to you if you want to add any wording at all, or if you don't want to add any, it's entirely up to you. But I just love that. And a few good little techniques in there. So just clean this. And then what you can do is look at your project and just see if you want any more touches of white. So if you want your white to be a little bit more prominent on your floral, you can just add a few little touches of white should you wish. If you want to go around the floral even more with the Inktense pencil, you can go around again, go round all the edge, and you can highlight, oh, wrong way. You can highlight the edge with the grey if you wish. I quite like just that bit of grey around the edge, just to bring that out a little bit more. Again, that's your Thrinchie, so you can decide. But I'm really pleased with those. So I hope you enjoyed those, and I hope you'll give those a go. I love that bird. And I hope you'll give those a go. Look at that, we've got something to look back on. So I hope you enjoyed those Thrinchies, and I can't wait to see your interpretation. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.